Todd McShay just dropped a brand new 2-round mock draft. So we're going to check it out, see who he has Atlanta taking in round 1 and round 2, as we are, 3 weeks away from the 2023 NFL Draft. So time to buckle up and dive into some Falcons draft rumors, because sometimes these mock drafts are awful, but sometimes they do get things right. And I think sometimes they do lead people down a path of, this is what we're hearing from this team. Now, we had a sub battle, by the way, last week, and here are the results from that battle. Took down Saints now, destroyed Vikings now. So shout out to all 272 of you who subscribed. The new battle for this week, our Falcons channel got paired with Seahawks Today by Chat Sports and Giants Now. So a fresh slate this week. Hit that sub button if you want the Falcons to finish number 1 against some more NFC foes. Now, let's jump into Todd McShay's latest mock draft. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, 1 and 2. Ooh, we got a trade. Colts move up to 3 and get Anthony Richardson. I like Cardinals moving back and still landing Will Anderson. Jalen Carter to Seattle. Tyree Wilson, our sweet edge-rushing prince, to Detroit. Devon Witherspoon to the Raiders. And at 8, the Falcons select cornerback Christian Gonzalez. Now, I am probably like a lot of you watching where I like to see mock drafts with different results just to get different opinions and different options. But we have seen a number of mock drafts select Atlanta going Christian Gonzalez. Now, here's what Todd McShay said in his write-up about this pick. I thought about Iowa edge rusher Lucas Van Ness for Atlanta, given it has been worst or second worst in sacks over the past 2 seasons. That said, the pass defense allowed a 67.8% completion percentage, 28th, and lacks a long-term option opposite A.J. Terrell at corner. Casey Hayward is entering the final year of his deal and turns 34 in September. Gonzalez has 6'1" size, 4.38 speed, and plenty of on-ball production, bringing down 4 interceptions last season. Now, an interesting note here is kind of what I mentioned earlier. ESPN's Jordan Reid had the Falcons taking Gonzalez as well, along with McShay and Kiper going cornerback in the last 2 mock drafts. So we're starting to notice a trend, right? Are the Falcons zeroing in on a corner at number 8? If Tyree Wilson is off the board, maybe plan 1A is take the best cornerback, right? Whether it's Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon. I'm a big fan of Gonzalez, like McShay pointed out. He's 6'1", 4.38 speed, extremely fluid as a corner. Like, I like to talk about this because you get a ton of draft cliches, but when it comes to corners, what are you looking for? You're really looking for speed and height, right? Because for cornerbacks, not to get a whole bunch of bonks here, but an inch does mean a lot here. And if you can get an extra quarter of inch in your wingspan and your height, that's the difference between being mossed and getting a pass breakup. So for Gonzalez to have the height, to have the speed, and the ball skills, kind of checks every single box you're looking for when drafting a corner. So what say you? Will the Falcons draft a cornerback at number 8? Will they look to pair A.J. Terrell with another stud corner and get one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL? It's never a bad thing with how pass-happy the league is. Let me know with a Y for yes or N for no. Now, when we look at the Falcons cornerback depth chart, A.J. Terrell, Casey Hayward, 1 and 2. You got Darren Hall, at least for the moment, at the nickel spot, and Mike Hughes is probably the first corner off the bench. I like Hayward, but I love the idea of what Gonzalez can do with A.J. Terrell for years to come, right? Adding another young corner alongside a Pro Bowl level and A.J. Terrell, Hayward to kind of bring him along a little bit in year 1, so he's not necessarily, birthed by fire. But Christian Gonzalez, I hate to say he's a can't-miss guy because there are a lot of players we think are unmissable, and then 2 years later, go talk to the Raiders and see how their can't-miss guys worked out. But Gonzalez, I'm very confident on. Last season for the Ducks, 4 interceptions, 7 pass breakups. His PFF grades from a season ago were spectacular. 83 overall, coverage 83, great tackler as well. Usually you find corners that come out of college and they can't tackle all that well, and that's fine. That's what you pay NFL coaches to do. he'll step into training camp knowing how to take down a big body receiver in the open field. Gonzalez is an elite athlete and player. He might go even earlier if we get some chaos early in the draft. He's just that good at a corner. So if we compare him to the other top 2 corners in this NFL draft, there's Devon Witherspoon and there's Joey Porter Jr. Now, Joey Porter's a bit more of a physical corner, right? He wants to jam you a little bit. He wants to get in your head. But Gonzalez is just as pure as they come. He is my number 1 cornerback going into this draft. But who is your CB1? If you have spent some time looking at corners because you feel like the Falcons might go cornerback at number 8, who is your top guy? Is it Gonzalez? Is it Witherspoon? Is it Porter? Give me the initials for the player you like the most. Now, next up, we're going to check out who ESPN had Atlanta taking in round 2 of the mock draft, because finally the cowards over in Bristol were, bold enough to venture past the first round. But first, the NFL draft hats are here. We've been talking about them for a little over a week now, and the reason being is I don't want anyone to miss out, because the sale and the deal, it doesn't last forever. So get the official 2023 Falcons NFL Draft hat when you use our link. It's in the comments and the description of today's show. Round 2, Atlanta goes Keeanu Benton, defensive tackle out of Wisconsin. So at pick 44, we go another defensive player. And listen, for how bad the Falcons defense has been lately, I'm not really going to have spoiled milk over them going corner and then defensive line back to back. Here's what McShay said about Benton. This should be an edge rusher, but there just isn't one with any sort of value on the board. Maybe Atlanta can move back a little bit, but if not, Benton has the quickness and strength to rush on the interior and stuff the run. He'd provide depth behind Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata before turning into a starter. It's an okay pick, but I would have liked Josh Downs, because I just think Josh Downs is going to be a better overall player. And outside of round 1, unless you have a glaring need, you guys know my motto. It is best player available. And Josh Downs, he's not even over 6 feet tall, I don't think, Rolly. 5'9". He plays like he's a 6'2 receiver. Put on the tape. And without knowing his height, you would assume he is way bigger than his actual size. Now, not to take away the roses from Benton here, in his career in Madison, 81 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, and 4 pass breakups. He was a very productive player for the Badgers. I think this is a good pick. I kind of like McShay's point about maybe it's a bit on the earlier side. So if you can move back, get some more picks, and get the same player, that's sort of a win-win. But when you look at the Falcons' defensive line room, there's only one true consistent, I think, for the next few years, and that's Grady Jarrett, right? Calais Campbell, he's on a 1-year deal, and it'll probably be just a 1-year deal. David Onyemata, he's probably here for at least 2 seasons, but I think if you want to find a way to start building a young nucleus, you go Benton in round 2, him and Jarrett for years to come. Yeah, that could be a formidable run-stopping defensive tackle duo. Now, I got a hot take for you guys here, so just try and, sit down and take it in for a moment. I think the Falcons are actually somewhat fine at interior defensive linemen, right? They were not the most disastrous run-stopping unit in the NFL last season. I'd rather see them attack outside linebackers, edge rushers, pass rushers, right? We're somewhat good after the Calais Campbell signing of stopping the run and working in between the 2 guards, right? Guard, center, guard. I want to see guys who can get after the tackles, right? Who can get around the edge. Find more pass rushers in that department, because they cannot get enough of them for how bad they have been for quite some time at finding and sacking the quarterback. So what should the Falcons do in round 2? Defensive line or wide receiver? I know it's a bit contingent on what happens in round 1. I feel safe that they won't go wide receiver in round 1. So if that's the case and they go defense, is it automatically wide receiver in round 2 to help out Drake London? Or is it, you know what? Let's go best player available. If that happens to be a defensive player, so be it. Kind of go back-to-back defensive picks. Now, some more draft buzz here coming from Josina Anderson. I'm told quarterback Anthony Richardson is currently expected to meet with the Raiders, Panthers, Falcons, Titans, Colts, and Ravens on his visit tour per league source. I'm also told while Pete Carroll has developed a good connection with Richardson, Seahawks aren't currently scheduled. This is something to keep an eye on because teams get 30 pre-draft visits. I don't believe that they use those 30 pre-draft visits just for shits and giggles, right? I think if they're bringing someone to Atlanta, they clearly have some level of interest and want to know more about the player so that if he is on the board when they're on the clock, they have more data points and more background to make an informed decision on who they should draft because the 8th overall pick is a multi-million-dollar investment. They don't want to get that wrong. Getting first-round picks wrong is a very quick way for a GM to get fired. So if he's bringing Anthony Richardson in, clearly he wants to know more about the quarterback. So clearly they have some level of interest of bringing in a quarterback. If not, they would have just said Desmond Ridder's our guy. We don't need to waste any visits here, but just something to monitor, something to keep an eye on. If anyone tells you there's absolutely no way the Falcons take a quarterback, it's a 0% possibility, I'd push back and say, well, they're meeting with Anthony Richardson. So they clearly have some interest in either just one quarterback or looking at all the quarterbacks that could be available to them at number 8. That is it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, I invite you to go ahead and do so. We will see everyone later with more Falcons draft news and rumors.